What's going on, reefers? Blaine here, hanging out at my desk, and today we're going to be doing a little tank tour of my eShop's 9-gallon Florida tank. I'm really excited about showcasing this system. We kind of teased it earlier on in one of the macroalgae videos. I talked about it as well when it came to the 15-gallon, potentially taking my 15-gallon clownfish and putting it into this eShop's tank as well. But I wanted to actually do a full-on tank tour and showcase this little tank that I have here on my desk. I think we showcase a lot of tanks here on the channel that are nice, big, elaborate systems, but I think this is a nice little change of pace, and showcasing a nano tank underneath 10 gallons, I think it's the right way to go. We'll go ahead and start off with the tank, the size, and all that good stuff. We have the eShop's Florida style, so this is going to be 18 by 11 by 10, and it's gonna have a roughly about 9 gallons of total system volume. I'm guessing with the displacement of the sand and the rock that I have in here, it's probably anywhere about 7 to 6 gallons at this point, maybe anywhere between 7 and 8 too, but it's definitely a smaller tank, and as you can see, it is heavily favored towards soft corals, flow, some macroalgae, and I've mixed in some nems as well. Let's go ahead and start talking about some of the livestock we have in the tank. As for fish, it's keeping it pretty simple. We have just one storm clownfish right now. It's a mocha storm, and then we also have a royal grama. I recently added in the royal grama. I think I need to get maybe one more fish into the tank. I definitely want to get a pair for my clownfish. I think the idea of having 2 clowns swimming amongst the anemones would be really cool to see, but overall though, I'm trying to keep it to the minimal. I did have at one point a small little yellow watchman goby, but he wasn't getting near enough food with the aggression and the aggressive feeding of the clownfish and the royal grama, so he didn't end up making it, but I'm thinking maybe adding in one more clownfish would be the way I want to go. Be sure to drop a comment down below what kind of fish you think I should be adding into this nano tank. When it comes to the corals, like I said, I love stuff that has flow to it, so we added a lot of soft corals into this tank. We have a bunch of toadstools in the back. We have some of our green Kenya tree. You can see a nice large chunk on the front side of the tank, and then right next to it as well, we have some corky sea fingers. So a really cool gorgonian that I got from my buddy Tyler. Shout out to Tyler, thanks so much, man. And then I've started to intermix a little bit of some SPS as well. We've got some Jade's bird's nest. We've got a couple different red digis, but overall though, it's mainly soft corals. We're gonna have the GSP in the back, some frozen apple zoas, we have a small little Recordia, and then a couple different toadstools. There's a nice little neon green toadstool, and then just the gorgonians too. I did want to mention too, I have a small little frag of the nuclear fusion that I have growing on the rocks, so I am definitely mixing in some extra SPS frags when it comes to the livestock here in the tank. I know Kevin would be proud seeing SPS here in this system when I said it was a soft coral tank, but we're definitely making it a true mixed reef over the course of time. I did want to mention though, I put in originally 2 Chicago sunburst anemones into this tank, and now I have 3. They've grown kind of exponentially. The one in the back has gotten huge to this point. It is really big, and then I had one that had gotten fairly large, and then it ended up splitting up. So the 2 nems in the front actually were one and recently made a big split. I also have a couple mangroves in this tank. I'm a huge fan of mangroves. I try to utilize them in every single nano tank that I have. I should be adding some to my sump as well here soon. I think they do a good job when it comes to nutrient export. Obviously, they're not going to do a ton of nutrient export until they get to a much larger size, but I think adding a cool little element above the tank is always nice. I've been a big fan of mangroves for a long time, so I ended up adding a light above them, and they've been doing really well. These were a couple propagules that I sourced locally off New Smyrna Beach, and I have 4 of them in here. 3 of them have really taken off, and then another one is kind of just nubbed out. It's just hanging out in the tank, hasn't really done much, but it's alive because every time I squish it, it's nice and firm, and there's brand new root growth happening all the time, so not entirely sure what's happening with it. Might snip off the top section and see if I can encourage some more new growth to happen. When it comes to the equipment on the tank, we're trying to keep it nice and simple and just utilizing only a few things here in this tank. So for the light, we have a AI Blade Coral Grow right over the top of it, and then above the mangroves we have the AI Blade Freshwater. So we're utilizing 2 different lights. I think that definitely attributed to some of the issues with some algae. I had a little bit of a bryopsis issue at the beginning. I also had a huge run-in with dinos. I did a complete tank blackout for a long period of time. It ended up lasting almost 4 days, I think, in total. But once I ended up taking off the garbage bag, things have definitely cleared up and it's looking really nice. Back to the equipment though. When it comes to the return pump in the tank, we're utilizing one of the new Aqualumination Axis pumps. I actually really am enjoying this pump in the system. I'm a huge fan of the My AI app. I think it's one of the easiest apps on the market. Obviously, you can incorporate your Aqualumination products with your Mobius app if you want to tie them into Mobius, but I've really enjoyed utilizing all of these different AI products on the tank. Keeping the lights and the pump all together on one interface, in my opinion, has made it much simpler to be able to get it going, take control of it, and also do my maintenance as well. The heater element that I'm utilizing in the tank is a small little Aqua eel I brought from home. I had one just laying around and I thought, why not bring it into the tank here and use it for keeping the tank nice and warm. We keep this office space pretty cool, especially during the summer months, you know, when everybody's in here. We've got the AC cranking, so I want to make sure I'm keeping this tank nice and warm. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of macroalgae in this tank, so we have a couple different species that we currently have in here. I've got what I had no idea was Chaetomorpha in the tank. I guess a small little strand ended up sneaking in and I let it just kind of continue to grow, and at this point I have a nice little Chaeto ball that's developed, and at some time I'm gonna end up peeling it out and take it to my tank at home where I can end up tumbling it in my refugium. We also have some really nice blue hypnea that's kind of mixed in throughout. It ended up exploding at one point and it's definitely died back quite a bit, so we only have some small portions here and there. Right in the front as well, we have some Caulerpa mexicana that's starting to take over. I love most Caulerpa species. I think it's really cool how they kind of send out runners and it creates nice little grass kind of motion in the tank. It can create some really cool flow as well. If anyone's looking at a species of macroalgae that does fairly well and grows quickly, I think any Caulerpa species is a good way to go. I will make mention though, if you don't make sure and maintain your numbers, especially your nutrient numbers, that is one species of macroalgae that can absolutely go asexual and can end up killing itself whenever it's trying to reproduce and send out its seed. So definitely something to keep your eye out whenever keeping Caulerpa species in your refugiums or in your display tanks. When it comes to the maintenance on this system, it's fairly simple in thought. I am gonna say having an acrylic tank is a little bit difficult. I always wanna just get in there with a razor blade and get after things, but I know that I'm gonna end up scratching it completely up. So using a little acrylic scraper can be kind of cumbersome, and I know when Coraline gets on the acrylic, it can be kind of difficult to get off. So that is one thing I've noticed with this acrylic tank that can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. But other than that, for the maintenance, I'm doing a weekly water change of about 2.5 to 3 gallons every single time. I'll do the sand bed, you know, I'll flush out the sand bed, clean it up nice, and then I'll also go through the rockwork with a pipette and try to blow out any detritus that's not getting blown through with the flow that's happening in the tank. Speaking of the scape, I ended up scaping this little tank myself, made 2 little structures in the tank. I just ended up utilizing some Marco rock and made myself this small little scape. I tried to maintain kind of under the 2/3 rule to allow myself to have some corals to grow upwards. I knew a lot of the soft corals were gonna take a lot of that height up, so I needed to make sure to try and make a nice and low scape. I'm sure all of you guys wanna know what the numbers are on this system. I'm gonna let you know right away. I'm letting the nutrients get a little out of control for all the soft corals to completely enjoy it. So for the nitrates, I like to keep it anywhere from 15 to 25, nice and high on the nitrates. For my alkalinity, we're sitting at about 8.9, right at what we're shooting for in the farm. For my calcium, I'm sitting at just about 420, and then for my magnesium, I'm at roughly 1300. When it comes to my phosphates, I'm sitting anywhere between 0.1 and 0.15. So flirting a little bit with the danger zone, but I'm trying to make sure that this tank is nice and dirty for all of my soft corals. I have noticed that my SPS aren't faltering with all these numbers as well, so just trying to maintain and continue on with that stability, I think is super key for all systems. We talk about this time and time again on the YouTube channel, but I'm gonna hammer it home one more time. Stability is the key for you to have success in your reef tanks. When I look at the tank now and I'm trying to decide what I want to add, I am definitely limited on space. So one thing I'll probably end up doing here soon is doing a little bit of fragging, clearing up some space, and then trying to fit in some more choice leathers. I'm really excited. Recently I got a frag of the Bahama Llama Weeping Willow, so hopefully I can get that to grow out in my tank at home and then finally bring in a small frag for my desk tank. I also think it would be really fun to get a piece of the Koji Wade Pink Nephthya. That's a coral that I think is completely underappreciated appreciated and one of my favorite soft corals in the entire hobby. We talked a little bit about some of the fish I'm hoping to get in. I am pretty confident that I want to add in one more clownfish to end up developing a pair. I will say this clownfish is kind of a bully, so I'm going to have to try to maybe find a clownfish that's bigger than this one, so that way I can try and counteract the aggression. But I'm a little worried with the time frame that she's had here in the tank alone, that she's maybe started the transition to become female. So maybe I need to just find a small, tiny little male clownfish that I can get into this tank, let her beat up for a little bit of time, and then hopefully they can become a pair. On top of my maintenance as well, in the back chamber, I have some filter floss that I'll take out periodically throughout the week, maybe once or twice throughout the week, definitely on Friday when I'm doing my water changes. And I also have a bag of carbon that I replenish every 2 weeks. Sometimes I replenish it every week, just kind of dependent on how things are looking in the tank. I know with the wide variety of corals I have in here, with the nems and all things included, I think it's important that I make sure I keep my carbon continuously changed out, so that way if there's any chemical warfare happening inside this tiny little box, that the carbon can help out with all those toxins in the water column. For feeding this nano tank, I'm keeping it nice and simple. Over in the farm, we utilize PE mysis, and every single time Evan's running around feeding all the tanks, I make sure he stops in and throws in some PE mysis into this tank as well. I also have a little cup of TDO. If I see that my phosphates are starting to dip, then I'll end up feeding TDO, or if I'm trying to do a quick meal before I get out of here for the day, I'll sprinkle in a little bit of TDO. I also feed the Reef Genetics line into this tank. I re-up copepods all the time, and I'm dosing all 3 of the different phytoplanktons. I think all the corals can definitely showcase how much they love these phytoplanktons in the tank. I'm dosing them every single day, not a ton, but just a little bit of each individual one, and I've seen huge change when it comes to the growth and the color of every single coral here in the tank. You guys have seen quite a few tanks here on the channel for tank tours, and most of them are huge when it comes to in size comparison of this nano tank. I did want to kind of reel it back in and bring it back down to a hobbyist level and showcase a nice little nano tank. I think it's also cool too to showcase some corals that aren't really high in prices, right? We have some pretty simple corals in here. We've got green Kenya tree, we've got toadstool, we've got Jade's bird's nest, we've got some frozen apples. These are corals that everyone can keep, but they look awesome at the same time. I really had a lot of fun showcasing my nano tank. I always have a blast being able to showcase my own personal systems here on the channel. And if you guys are interested in seeing my Red Sea Reefer 425 G2+, you guys have to leave a comment down below. And maybe Kevin will hook me up with some nice frags along the way. If you guys have hung out all the way till the end, I want to say thank you so much. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on any future uploads.